types of communicators and leave it at that. I say to them, there are people who speak to you face to face, and there are others who speak behind your back. Which one are you? Once the rest of the company is aware of the two types, they generally remind someone who is gossiping or stabbing someone in the back about the two types of people. It doesn't totally stop the gossiping, but it does keep it down, and in general, overall communication improves. I also tell them that I would prefer to be stabbed in the chest rather than stabbed in the back, so I don't tell them what to do. I simply give them a choice. Have you been stabbed in the chest? I asked. Oh, a number of times, and I deserved it. I needed to be corrected and reminded to be open-minded as much as anyone else. As much as it hurt, it was less destructive than a stab in the back. Aren't people afraid of being fired? Oh, there is always that risk, smiled Rich Dad. That is why it takes courage and excellent communication skills to be successful in business. In many instances, it is not what you say, but how you say it. So if the communication is going to be unpleasant, put on your creative thinking cap and figure out the most humane and kind way to say what needs to be said. And always remember that communication does not mean talking. Communication also includes listening. When two people are upset and both are talking, friction increases and communication decreases. The reason God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth is to remind us to listen more than speak. So, being an entrepreneur is a lot about people and the communication skills needed to communicate to them. Rich Dad agreed and continued, saying, leadership requires great communication skills. To become a better entrepreneur requires you to focus on improving your communication skills. One of your first steps in your leadership development is to develop the courage to be a face-to-face communicator and to work on developing your communication skills. If you are a stab-them-in-the-back type of communicator, I doubt your business will grow. Entrepreneurship is for people with courage. It's not for cowards. If you will work on always improving your communication skills, your business will grow. Remember that just because you're talking does not mean you're necessarily communicating. And in sales, telling is not selling. Communication is a far more complex process than simply moving your lips and wagging your tongue. Sitting quietly as Rich Dad enjoyed his meal, my mind went back to the angry father, the customer whom Rich Dad had fired. I asked, and that is why you told that irate customer that you had no vacancies. It was better than telling him what you thought of him. Yes, as the entrepreneur, one of your jobs is to protect your company and your employees from cheap customers, the customers who want more than they pay for, the customers who want something for nothing. I had to find a way of firing that customer without getting into an argument again. I knew he would stab me in the back if we got into it. That is why I make it a point to fire cheap customers, politely and discreetly. Isn't that cruel or discriminating against poor people? I did not say poor people, said Rich Dad, raising his voice. The word I used was cheap. Cheap customers, not poor people. There is a difference. There are rich cheap people and poor cheap people. Cheap has nothing to do with money. It has to do with a state of mind. In some cases, I would say it borders on a mental illness. Also, I would not classify cheap people in the same category as bargain hunters. We all love a bargain, yet as much as we love value for our money, very few of us want value at the expense of someone else. But a cheap person does. A cheap person borders on being a thief, and sometimes they are thieves. If it's not money they're stealing, they steal your time and your energy. They steal your peace of mind. For all the months of misery that one guy caused our company, it would have been better for us to let him just stay for free. He sucked the life out of our business for months. He seemed to enjoy messing with us. He always changed the deal and said we said things we did not say. He always wanted a better price, even after he agreed to pay a set price. He seemed to enjoy having us come after him. Instead of spending time on our good customers, we spent time on him. Having a bad customer can cost us good customers. That is why I say that you need to fire your cheap customers. They're too expensive. This is a very important lesson to learn if you want to be an entrepreneur. Always remember, take very good care of your good customers and fire your cheap customers. How to find good customers. In business, a very important word is the word margin. It is as important a term as cash flow. In fact, both terms are intricately related. In overly simple terms, margin is the difference between what it costs to produce your product and the price you sell your product for. For example, let's say it costs you $2 to manufacture your widget and you sell your widget for $10. In this case, your gross margin is $8. There are 3 reasons why a product's gross margin is so important. 1. The gross margin finances the rest of the BI triangle. Looking at the BI triangle, you can see that a product's margin must provide enough cash flow to feed the rest of the triangle. Margin pays for the team's salaries, legal fees, the company's system operations, marketing, and accounting. These are also known as operating expenses. 2. Margin determines the price of your product. Obviously, the more margin, the higher the price of your product. 3. Product and price determine your customer. To help clarify this, let's look at the automobile industry. A Rolls-Royce is known as a very expensive car. It attracts a certain type of customer. If Rolls-Royce suddenly announced it was going to produce a low-priced budget model, many of their rich customers would probably start looking for another brand of car. Wrong car, wrong price, wrong customer. Recently, Jaguar announced it was dropping its lower-priced model because it realized that offering a lower-priced model had hurt its sales. After losing $700 million in 1 year, they finally realized that they should stay at the high end of the car market and not try to capture market share in the mid-price market. Today, many brands are made in the same factory. For example, a factory that produces blue jeans can produce jeans for a high-end brand and a low-end brand. It is basically the same product, but the high-end brand can command a higher price and is sold through a different distribution channel, let's say Saks Fifth Avenue. If the high-end brand wants to produce a low-end brand, they had best create another brand for a different distribution channel, let's say Walmart. In fact, that is what many big companies do. They produce the same product, but under different brands representing different price points for different customers. So, to find good customers, you need to match the product and the price to fit the customer's needs, wants, and ego. In many cases, the customer's ego is far more important than wants and needs. How much is your product worth? In 1996, after the cash flow game was in its final production and ready for commercial use, the next question was, how much is this game worth? How much can we sell the game for? Those of you who have seen our game may recognize some of the challenges we faced. When Kim and I first saw our finished commercial version of the game for the first time, both of us were as proud as new parents. We were also concerned. The packaging looked great, but we thought it might have looked too much like a game for entertainment rather than education. We made it look bright and fun because we wanted learning to be fun. But as we looked at our finished product, we began to wonder, how much would someone pay for fun? We wanted people to know the game was about education, but again, how much would someone pay for education? Looking at our finished product for the first time, Kim and I knew we had serious marketing challenges. To find out what the market might think about our product, once again, we formed a group of people who did not know us, as we did with the beta test, and asked them what they thought of the packaging. The feedback was mixed, from "it looks great" to "it looks stupid." The people in the group did not know we were the creators of the game, so their opinions were pretty frank, often painful. Next, we asked them what they thought the price of the game should be. Again, not knowing us or what went into creating a game, and not having played the game, the prices they suggested ranged from $19.95 to a high of $39.95. This was even more depressing. At that point in time, due to the small production runs, our cost just for producing the game, without freight, was $46 per game. This did not include the development costs. We were starting off with a product with a negative margin before we added in the costs of the rest of the BI triangle. When I was manufacturing my nylon wallets, a joke among manufacturers was, even if I am losing $2 a unit, we're going to make it up on volume. Calling in a consultant. We called in a consultant in the toy industry who had expertise with board games. After trying the game himself, he gave us his opinion of cash flow. His first comment was, "The game is too difficult." He said, "People have become less smart. If Monopoly were introduced today, it would be rejected too, because it would be deemed too difficult. Today, games must be so simple that all the instructions on how to play the game can be understood within a couple of minutes." We also asked him how much we could sell the game for. He replied, "You might get $39 at retail. That means you would have to sell it to a retail store for $20,